Hello everybody, it's me again. And this video is a continuation to the previous video related to CoreData. In the previous video, I was able to store data, text or strings into the database. The purpose of this video, couple things, is one, to how to store images. The other one, how we retrieve data and show it into a table view. All right, so we'll start with storing the image. Now, to store an image, you can of course get the image from an image picker, but for the sake of simplicity, I'm focusing on CoreData. I have a file called logo.jpg. I want to be able to store this in the database. Okay, so open the previous project that you were working with, and then let's continue on it. So what do you do here? First, let me create the image. So I'm going to say let image equal UI image, and then I'm going to call it name. And the name of it is logo.jpg. Okay, that's my image. All right. All right. So typically, that's what you have. You have an image, and then it's in the format of JPEG or PNG, depending on what is your formatting the image in. And then you want to save it in a table or an entity or to hard disk. But the purpose of this is to store it in CoreData. So now what I do is that I say I need to convert. Remember, when we look at the store Swift class, I have NS data. So I need to convert this image to NS data and store it in the database. There is a command that let us do that, which is let image data, I'm going to call it, equal to UI image JPEG representation. You see that? So this will give you, it returns NS data, and it takes an image and it converts it to JPEG data representation. And then you can store it in the database. That takes two parameters. The first parameter is the image, which we just created, the image, and then the compression rate, quality. If you leave it, the highest would be 1. If you leave it at 1, it will be the same size as the original image. If you make it 0.5, it'll be half of the quality, and so forth. So now, if I'll put here image, and then here I will put the compression rate. I'm going to leave it as 1. All right. The next part, we're ready to save it in the database. So all I have to do is that store dot. Remember, we have image as image, and then I just simply assign it to the image data. All right. And that's it. And this is all you need to do to store the image into the database. Now, in the next part, I'll show you how we convert it back. We take NS data, make it into an image, and then put it in the table view. All right? So I'm going to do this. If you run it again, I'm waiting for all right. If you type in anything here, remember it's UUU, whatever. And now, typically, I told you, you will have a button here, and then you call an image picker, you pick your image, you got your image, and then you convert it to NS data, and then you store it. But again, that would take a while, so that's not the focus of the video. But I want to show you how we store data. And then you can just put any numbers for now. Okay, and then you can click on save. It's saved. So I should have a record now. This UUU will have that image. All right. All right. So that's the first part. The second part I'm going to show you is that how do we create a table view that retrieve the data and show it on the screen? How we can do this? I'm going to go to the storyboard, main storyboard. I'm going to put a table view controller here. Table view controller. I'm going to put it as my first. All right. And I am going to embed this as in a navigation controller. Okay. Let's do a couple things here. So this would be my starting point. So I'm going to take this and put it here. So that would be my starting point. And in here, I'm going to add a button that will take me to this screen. Okay. First, let's format the cell. So I'm going to take the cell here, the attribute of the cell, and then I'm going to make it not custom. I'm going to make it subtitles, and we'll make it a little bit bigger. All right, that's one part. Now I'm going to add a tab item here that would take me to this to allow me to add a record. So we will go in here, tab bar item, tab bar button, I think, if we can find it. I can type here, tab bar button, tab bar item. No, this is wrong one. All right, bar item button. Okay, bar button item. We can get confused between these two. Now what happens is here you need to change it to the plus sign. So instead of custom, I'm going to make it add. And from here, I'll take me to this view controller, and I'm going to make push. Okay, so we'll have access to this so we can add records. All right. Now the next part, I am going to create a custom class for this table view controller. So I'm going to say here we want to create a new class, a new file, and Coca class, and this is the table view controller. I'm going to select UI table view controller, and I'm going to call that store list table view controller. Okay, and then we click on next and close. All right, so I have my class. All right. First thing I want to do is that I want to access, remember, I want to include the CoreData, just same steps that we've done before, CoreData, import CoreData. Data. Then we want to get access to the managed object date. We need to get access to the managed object context. So remember how we did that in the previous class? So I'm just going to copy it from there. So you just go to the view controller, and then here's what we did for the managed object context. So I'm going to copy this, and copy, go to the table view controller again, and then paste it here. So now I have the managed context, object context. All right. Now you can do it in two ways. You can do it in the view did load. That means when you first load your view controller, it goes to the database and get all the records in the database and show them in the table of view. Or you can do it in the view did appear. That means every time the view appears on the screen, it goes and refreshes the data from the table view. I'm going to show you both. I'm going to show you the view did load. All right. Before we do that, we need to create an array of stores. So I'll say stores var store equal, because this is who's going to hold my data. Okay. This is the array that's going to hold my data, similar to what we've done before. Okay. But now instead of us creating and adding it, it's coming from the database. All right. I'm going to add another method here. And this method function, we're going to say, watch, view did appear. You see that? View did appear. That means every time the view appears, we want to do something. What do we want to do? We want to go to the database. From the database, I'm going to get the records, put them in this array, and reload my table. All right? Okay, we'll do that, and then we'll configure the table. We need to configure a few things in the table. So the first thing I want to do, I'm going to define an error. Remember, we have an error, and that's because I might get an error to fetch the record. So it's a good idea to monitor for errors. Okay, so NS error. Okay, so optional variable. And then I'm going to say, to get the data, instead in SQL, you would say select from. Or if you want to add the data, you say insert to into, right? Well, what I'm going to do here, we're going to create what we call fetch request in the core data. So I'm going to say let request equal to ns fetch request. Okay, ns fetch request, and then you can give it the entity name. That means, what are you trying to fetch records from? Well, the entity name is the one that we've created earlier, which is what? Store. That's the entity name that we've created in the model, remember? All right, so that's to get the request. Now, in the next video, I'll show you how we pass parameter to this. We're going to say we can look, for example, how we find a record. And find a record will require you pass actually a value or a store name that you're looking for, all right? So here, the next piece is that you execute your query, your request. And remember, we have managed, remember I have created an array here, it's called stores. So I'm gonna use stores. There's different ways to do this, by the way, but I'm gonna say stores equal MO object, manage object, context, dot what? Dot execute fetch request. Execute fetch request. What is the request? The request that I've just created here. Okay, so this would be my request. Okay, then what? Then the error. The error is the one that I've created earlier, which is error. Okay, and then we need to use the address of this, so it'll be like this. All right, and that should be it here. If you want to cast it, to make sure it's casted, you can say as what? As arrays of what? Store. All right, otherwise it doesn't know what are you, this would be, and this will give you an array of any object. So you cast them to stores and then you store him in the store array. All right, now we're ready. All I have to do, if we have data, because this will give you either empty, this will give you an empty record or some data. All right, and if there's an error, typically you will have to monitor for error. If error is not, if you remember when we did in here, you can check if error is not, if it's not, if you don't have an error, then you can reload the data. Okay, in either case, it will be an empty array anyway. So what happens now, what you want to do, you'll say table view. There's a method in the table view called table view or self.table view. We say reload data. Reload data. What does that mean? What does this do? This method, it will actually start fetching against, start again loading your table. All right. Remember we've done when we talked about the table view. You can refresh your table view by executing this command. You use the table view and then you execute this method, which is reload data. Now we're almost there. What I want to do next is that I want to configure my table. So it would return 1, or it would return, for the section, return 1. For the rows, which is stores.count. All right, so if we don't have any record, it'll be empty. Now we need to configure this here. First, if you remember, we need to make sure that I've used the cell identifier in the table. I'll go back and change it here in a minute. Then I change the values of the cell. So for example, I use cell dot, before we do that, we need to get access to the store, right? Which comes from the array. So if I say let store equal stores and index path, that will give me, we've done this before, okay? So I get the element from the array. Then I say what? I say now I have access to the store. Then I say cell dot label text, text label dot text, equal to what? Equal the value that comes from where? That comes from store dot store name. Okay. Then you do the same thing for the description. So cell dot detail description, detail text dot text equal again what? Store dot description. S description, right? S description. All right, we need to make this as optional. All right, and the last thing I'm gonna get is the image. So how do you get the image? Now here is how we convert the data back from an as data to an image data. So what do you do here? You say cell.imageview.image equal to what? Equal to store. Well, we want to create an image here. So I say UI image, and one of the options here, you can create an image from NS data. You see this? So you can say NS data, UI image, NS data, and then here you will put the data from the store, which is store dot image as image, I believe. All right, that's it. One more step we need to do is that when we go to the data, we need to go to the storyboard and give this cell an identifier, which is called cell, right? And that will do it. All right, now watch what's gonna happen. Hopefully it will work. We will get a table of view with no record. How come no record? Oh, I know why. Well, we did one step we did not do, which is making sure that we tie this class to the storyboard. So if you go back to the storyboard, here, and then make sure the table view controller identity inspector is the table that we just created, which is stored like this. That's why. All right. Okay, now at least it's getting there, right? So if you run it, now I had some records, but the ones that I've created are these. You see that? Now if you click on this, and then if we add another one, okay, GGG, and then whatever, the here. Oh, this wrong, but it doesn't matter because they're strings anyway. And then here, and if I click on save, success. Now if I go back, notice what will happen. I should have the third one I just added. All right, so that is the end of this video. If to summarize what we've done, to save the data, if we go back to the class, if you save the data, if we go back to the view controller, sorry, to save the data, you get an image, and the source of this image right now is a file. I added it to my project. You just drag it into your project, or it could be from a image picker view, whatever. And once you get the image, you convert it into a data, NS data, using this command, UI image JPEG representation. There's another command for PNG. So depending on the file, the type of the image you're using, you convert it into data, and then you have compression rate. How, like when sometimes you want to send an email that says how much do you want it to be, original size or half size, whatever. So you can do that here, and then you store the image. You assign the image data to the image attribute in your class, which of a type and as data. Okay, so that's one part. The second part is that we create a table view. In the table view, to fetch the record, what you do first, of course, you get the manage object context. You create an array where you're going to store all the data, all the record. Then you can do it in view. If you can do it in the view did load, but the view will appear or view did appear, it means that every time you go, maybe you added some records and you wanted to refresh it. This is maybe a crude way, expensive way of doing it. Maybe there are other way where you can set notification or delegate that now upload the data every time you add. Okay, so you don't need to do it all the time. So this is one way. You get an fetch request. You pass to it the identity name. You execute the query, and then you store the result into the array that you've created before above. Then you ask the data to be reloaded. The rest of it is very similar to what we've done before, except for the UI image. Now, instead of UI image getting it from a file, you get it from the data that is stored in the store class. All right, that is it. All right, I'll see you in the next video. I think we'll have to create more video related to CoreData. The next one, I'll show you how we do find and update. All right, see you in the next video.